Okay, come back to the JavaScript session. So under the document languages, markup languages, I told you this time there are slightly modified the content. So this time we'll focus on basic web development technologies. We started with HTML, CSS, and then JavaScript. And actually, we talk about a little bit about XML, although it's not widely used nowadays. Still, it's useful. So we discuss about the similarities, especially when you compare with creating on your tags. And initially, before people use JSON, so XML actually widely used. So those are the topics we have discussed. So last time we looked at JavaScript fundamentals, and today I'm going to continue with some more. Especially today we will look at how we can handle the browse as object as well as listen to various different events like executing JavaScript code when you click a button and so on. So that's what we are going to discuss today. But before that, let me quickly go through what we have done last time, especially the JavaScript is actually quite popular nowadays, not only as so in web technologies, both in front end as well as back end. So you can think it's one of the core technologies when it comes to web development together with HTML and CSS. So we look at every day when we interact with various different apps, the web, you will notice the many of the components, interactive components, are written using JavaScript. So last time we looked at how we can actually use JavaScript especially in the modern web stack. As I told you earlier, it is used in various different places in nowadays. But our discussion for this part actually, in this particular module is actually we discuss in front end, especially when you interact with the web pages, when you want to have interactivity in your web development, we discuss how to use JavaScript. So with that said, we discuss how to add in JavaScript to a page. You can use within the HTML. Now that's one way. We discuss about writing content in the console, and then also included as an external script. So those things that we have discussed last time. And we are to actually use this basically prefers within the head, or you can use as the end of the body. So those are the two common places of use this. Then we discuss the basic use of this, writing statements, and also the use of statements, use of comments, and then how to use the variables. And remember that earlier, before the version 6, the variable declaration was not compulsory, but now better you actually use them. Use of let, if you want to create a variable which you want to if you want to reassign later on, but if you want to make it a read only or constant, you can use const. Then we also discuss about the different variables, data types, and then also use of variables, especially in different ways. So you can notice in this particular case that the use of variable in various different ways, and then the outcome of this in this particular case as strings. Then we discuss about the booleans, and then we discuss about the arrays and how to handle individual elements. Then we discuss different array methods. We have not discussed in detail how to make use of them, but it's same as in any other, programming language. So maybe you need to little bit of practice. And some of the examples, actually, I am using some of these array handling methods. Then we discuss of the arithmetic operators, comparison operators, and make use of this. One thing to highlight here is now checking equality. So especially if you focus on these two cases, we have a string and a number, but then this will be evaluated as a true. Therefore, many of the time when you actually check the equality, so it prefers to use use of three equal signs like this. It's a common practice now when you check equality, because it checks the value, both the value as well as the data type. Right, then we discuss about the logical operators, making assignments, use of selections using if, testing something. And this is what I have noticed earlier. You use this operator when you're checking whether your left-hand side is equal to right-hand side. And then we did some examples, ternary operators, making, writing statements and make it a single liner, common practice and common use. And then we discuss about the use of loops, using both for loops as well as use of while and do whiles. And then, okay, maybe we can start from here. Use of functions. Of course, there are many functions you have observed early that we have used, but you can create your own set of functions. And this particular case, we are creating functions our own, which is called custom functions. And then you can use it. Since we have used a console, maybe we can start with this one. So with that said, I will take Chrome browser just to show you how it works, and then maybe share it with you, both this. And remember, this is debugging. We have not used in a particular we have not used it in the particular script or something, but we are using the browser itself. So let me start with that. So last time I told you, like, especially when you want to go to right click on the page, and if you go to inspect, and then you normally see three places. In this particular case, your output at the inside, that is used normally for the developer window, and then you can have console. Here you can actually type the command. So let me use the function here. So I can say, okay, function foo, and then open and close bracket, and then we have curly brackets. And of course, if you want to type something, let me say console.log, and then of course you type some message here, which will be output. So let's say our function just right. Let's see what was the error. Wait, I missed the right. And then next time, whenever you want to use it, you can call the function, and then you will observe that it just ran and the message is printed output this one. So later today, I can talk about how you can output something to the browser itself. I come to that point. Right now, we'll focus on identifying basic construct in the JavaScript. Right. The next thing that I would like to discuss is you can actually use any arguments. You can pass values to the functions. So let me first explain the the concept, and then I will show you how it works. Right. In this particular case, you will notice that we have the function. Simply, if you go through the function definition, you can notice that it says function log array size, and then we have a parameter, and basically you are checking the length of the array. And when you call in the function, you can notice that we define the array as a test array, and we have 5 elements. And then when you call the function, we call with the argument test. That means we are passing this array, and then it will give you the answer as 5. That means the number of elements. So let me type it. Remember in earlier we have typed in the same line, but if you want to separately, you can write like this: function log array size, and then you can say the parameter, and then curly brackets, and press shift and enter, and then you can go to the next slide. I will repeat if you want to type it the way I have written in the slides. If you want to go on to next line, you have to press shift and the enter. Okay, now I will say console dot log. Okay, simply this one is in the array methods. Simply you can get the length of the array. Shift and enter, and then I will put the curly brackets, semicolon, and this is the function. There's no return, that's why we get it as undefined. Now let me define now the array const, and I will say test. Okay, so I will have 5 elements. Const test was okay, we have the 5 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's the test. You can see, yes, if you call it, you can notice that. Okay, so you have this. So let's call the function we have just created, log array size, and then we'll pass test. And you can see the outcome is 5 in this particular case. Okay, let's explain everything from the beginning. We have created a function. So let me type from the beginning. The function definition is like this. We will create a function. We said log array size. And okay, so you can type in the single line, but if you want to make it a break, this is what I said earlier. Type shift and enter, which will go to the next line. And then I will say console.log, and then I'll take array method, in this case length, which will output the length of the array. Okay, that's how we define. And then we'll say console test. Let's create, sorry, it should be const. We will create a read-only array. And then let's pass this array to the function we have just created. And you can see it's 5 because there are 5 elements. Of course, you can try something else. You can dynamically pass an array as well. So let me say we have 10, 20, 30, and 40, which is also the same. It just says 4. So in the next function, I'm going to show you how to use of return. This is also a common use. For example, in this case, I'm creating a function. And this time I'm going to create it as a get array size. Same functionality with a slight modification. Observe whether you can see the difference. So I'm going to use the same function slightly modified. This time I said get array size. Uh, Again, what I'm trying to get is the length of the array. So instead of using a console to output in the console, I will use a return keyword. So what happens with the return keyword? This is actually common in many of the time when you write functions. If you want to store the answer, I will repeat, if you want to store the answer, right? And then if you want to make use of later on in the code, so this is how you should write the function. So you have to write the function which will return the values. So what happens with the return statement, the previous one, when you call it, it immediately output. And this time it's not the case. So to work with this, I'm going to create a constant, we'll say size, and then I will say get array size, and I'm passing the array test earlier. So you can see that there's no output, but if you want to see what is the output, then I have to say console.log, and I have to get the outcome of size, and now it says 5. So the beauty of this, or the usefulness of this, is now in this particular case, we uh, call the function get array, and we are passing the test, and test will be assigned to the variable array here, and then it will calculate the length of the array and come back here, so that the size will be the length of the test array. And finally, when you say a console log size, it will output 5. Right. Let me talk about the very interesting use of functions. So with the modern syntax, it's quite common we use the what we call the arrow functions, right? So you can notice here uh, arrow functions. So that means alternative way of writing traditional Java functions, right? And the new version, you use what we call fat arrow, meaning this arrow. Instead of writing a function like this, you will see that in this particular case, basically you are creating a function called add, and then you are expecting 2 values, and then you are returning A and B. So basically with the use of this, we can write. And now we can use the arrow, and then simply we can make it very elegant using a single line, right? So this is very useful um, in regular functions, right? So use of regular functions, we have to use a function keyword. And in this particular case, we are using what we call the fat arrow here, right? That's one thing. And in regular functions, we have the arguments within the brackets we can have, but you don't have to use the arguments as in earlier, right? So let me use of this with the regular fashion, and then also the in the modern syntax. But when you are using it, right, you don't see any difference. But of course, if you're using the arrow functions, the modern syntax, there are other methods that you can use, right? So that's something that you will notice with use of arrow functions. So let me explain this with the so a traditional way of defining a function we have already done. We can say function, we can use a function keyword, and then function name, let's say add, and then we can have some variables. So, and then we can write down inside what should happen. So ideally, let's say this will return the addition of the two variables. And this is how we traditionally we will write this, right? So whenever you want to apply this, we can use add 2 comma 3, and you can observe that it will return 5. Now, with the arrows function, you don't have to use function. The same thing I will write using arrow function, right? It looks like this. So we will have let, and then we have add equal sign, and within bracket, do you have any variables? In this case, we are using both A and B. And then this is what we call the fat arrow. And then we will type whatever we want to return in this case. So in this particular case, by using add, we want to return A plus B, right? So that's how we define. Okay, we have already defined it. That's why you are getting error. Maybe I will slightly modify. So maybe I will say add 2. Right. Now, just to avoid that issue, so 2 comma 3, and you observe the same behavior. Right. So you have now observed the declaring. So the traditional way of creating a function, as well as the modern implementation of functions. And we use a special name for this, we call arrow functions. So if you ask me like why this is, you can actually use a very short ways to write function, and it's very simple, and you can just basically use one lines, right? So therefore, this is you might see in codes most often use of arrow functions. So you should be get familiar with this. Right. Small exercise. Can you give me the code to multiply two numbers similar to this? Create a function called multiply. similar to the function we have written for adding, which will return the multiplication of two numbers. Okay, maybe I will start with the first one. So what are arrow functions, right? Uh, it's like the regular functions. And if you remember our regular functions, we have a function, the keyword function, and we have a function name, whatever the values we need to work it on. So when you are adding two numbers, we need at least two variables. And then basically we will add them and we are returning back. And so if you want to write the function for multiplying two numbers, so it will be the same syntax. We can say multiply a comma b, and we can return multiplication of a and b. Right now, in this particular case, we are writing everything in the single line. So we can say let, and whatever the function name. So I can say, let's say multiply, right? And then we will have whatever the values you need. So in this particular case, we need two values. And the output is simply a multiplication with a and b. So let me press enter. And then this will create, and then we can use multiply, and we can pass two values. So let's say 2 and 3. So you will get 6 as the outcome. Just let me know. Right. So let's discuss the answer for the second one. So it will be the same as early. Maybe I can use let here, square the name of the function, and then equal sign, and then any parameters you need. Of course, you can use, curly brackets. And if, this time we are getting just a number, and then we want to return the square of the number. So therefore, you don't need actually the bracket, just X would be enough. And then the arrow, we call fat arrow. And then what you are going to return is the square of X. Simply you multiply X by X. That's all. Then if you say square, and then if you say 2, it'll be 4 square. Let's say 3, sorry, square 3, it'll be 9. Simple as that. Try the last one now. I think now it should be possible. Okay, so let me give you the answer for that one as well. And I will give you some more exercises for you to try them. So let's say I'm going to create this time function, say, let's say hello, right? So that's the name of the function. And in this case, directly it will print the message. So there's no parameters, no values we need. So it's empty. So therefore, I will use brackets here. And then whatever the message that I want to display. So let's say I'm going to say hello, right? And that's all. So now whenever you call hello, so it just print the message hello. So make a note of the 3, and I will, post you some exercises on functions. Now I will give you some basic questions in, JavaScript for you to try. Okay, so that's about the functions in JavaScript. Right, this is where we were. use of regular one, use of regular functions as well as arrow functions we discussed. Right. Next part, I want to discuss very important idea about the variable scope. What I mean by this one is whenever you create variable, there's a visibility. Now we are trying to understand the visibility when we create variables, especially within the functions and with the accessibility of the variables, right? So remember one thing, usually what we expect when you have any variables within the function, it should be available what we call the locally. So it should not be visible to the outside. So generally we say whatever the variables that you will use within the function, they are local to the function. Whatever that you normally use anywhere, right? We call globally scope. You can access it from anywhere. Right. I will explain this with a simple example. Right. Now, what I mean by this is when you're declaring variables, when you create variables, ideally make sure that we are using let or const when you want to actually create variables. So these variables will not be visible to the outside, right? These variables will not visible to the outside, right? But whatever the variables you declare outside the function, we call it a global, can be accessed it from anywhere. We normally call global scope. Now, let me explain this a small example. So in this particular case, you will notice that we create a variable total here, and then we will call the function double, and we put 20. So what happens that 20 will go inside 20 plus 20, that will be 40, it will return 40. Now that we have a total here, right? You might wonder that we are getting whatever the value outside, isn't it? So let's type this and let's observe the outcome. Right. So what I want to try here is I'm going to create a function. So let me say function. And then I define a double of the number. I will type shift enter and I will create a variable called total. The total will be num plus num. By adding twice, we have doubled the number, right? And then we'll say return total. Right. So now if you want to access it, and if you say double 5, so what is the outcome? We are getting 10, right? Why it is 10? Because this will be passed to the variable num, and num is 5. 5 plus 5, total becomes 10. When you say return total, you will get 10 as the outcome. Right. Now let me show you what happens here in this piece of code. So now I will say let number equals double, right? 20. So what happens here? You pass 20 to the function double, So 20 is passed there, 20 plus 20, total becomes 40, and then it will return 40. So we don't get any outcome here. But what is the value? If you say console of total, is it 10 or is it 40? So let me discuss what is happening here. Right, maybe I will go to the original code here. So I will share my slide. So in this particular case, the observation here, right? Now this is what I want to discuss. So we have two variables, right? Can you see two variables? One is outside, one is inside. Remember that when you are defining a variables within the function, this will not be visible to the outside. So therefore, although we are putting 20 here, 20 plus 20, 40, this is not the same as this. So this is outside and this is inside. So ideally, inside is not visible to the outside. So therefore, when you print total, ideally, we get the answer 10. So let me show you in the chat. So in the console, so when we say console dot log total, right? We are getting 10. So there's no change. What about this? I'm going to change. I will say change it. So I will say A equals 0. Okay, what is the outcome now? So this time you can see I have created a function called change A. Within that I say A equals 1. And then outside I'm going to say A equals 0. And then I'm going to say change A. And then when I try checking the value of A, it becomes 1. That has changed. So remember that. When you are creating functions, whatever the variables you declare within, you should use at least let or const over. Without that, we call it a implicit global. You have no control this one. So that's a mistake. Actually, this is not recommended, right? So ideally, in JavaScript, we use the term use strict, where you check these cases, right? So therefore, you always use let or const when you're declaring variables within the functions. So this is an called implicit globals, and you should avoid these kind of errors. Right. Right. We'll move to the new section now. We'll do some practice questions on functions so that you can get ready. So It's a little bit complicated, it seems, for most of you. Let's have some examples for you to understand how JavaScript function works. Okay, let me show you some easy functions in JavaScript, which is common functions for output, right? So in this particular case, so I'm going to show you a couple of examples of use of functions, right? Okay, so I can use console here. We'll first look at one at a time. So we have alert. You can use that. Usually you will get a pop-up window and you will get a message. So whatever you write within the alert will be displayed to you. If you use confirm, similar to pop-up window, but you will have yes and no buttons. You can select depending on yes or cancel usually, and you can use that. So depend on which value you use, you are getting true, false value. Console log, we have already done this. This is good for checking the codes, and that's what we were doing in the console. Remember, to get that, you have to always come to the console window. Document.write, we can directly write content to the HTML document. We'll see how we can do this. Then we have prompt. You can again get input from the user. So now let me demonstrate the use of each function, the output function in JavaScript. Right. So to explain that, let me use our console window. Right. So what happens with the alert? Simply you can type simple alert method, and you can print it out. So for example, if you say alert, and if you put a message, let's say welcome to JavaScript. Try this command. So if you press enter, you can notice you are getting a pop-up window. This is called alert. We call alert box. And ideally, these are like outputting this. So you can see a message, welcome to JavaScript. And we can click OK. So that's how it works. So whenever you want to, show a message like a pop-up window, right? You can use alert. Right. Now, let me explain the other one, and then to explain document.write, I want to go back and we'll create a HTML function within the HTML document. So JavaScript function, we can create HTML document. Right. Let me check one more thing. Console log we have already observed. So you can type anything and it will display in the same place. So that we have observed. Right. Now to elaborate the other ones, I'm going to use a simple HTML document and a JavaScript code. So that's what we are going to do. Right. We'll get one at a time. Right. So I'm getting a notebook here, right? And then I'm going to write the basic script, right? So let me type this and I will share the code with you. So let me copy paste this in the chat. Right. Okay, nothing in the body. So in this particular case, okay, I'll type welcome to Java. Right. So let me save this. I'm going to save this. Save. I will say JavaScript exercise, and I will save it as HTML file. Okay, let me open. Right, maybe I will go to the desktop, and this is the file JavaScript exercise 1. So you can observe the outcome. Right. Let me put aside, and here is my code. So what I did here is I have opened up a notebook. So I open a notebook, the copy paste the code, and then save it as an HTML file. Anywhere you can use, and you can type whatever the file name. I will say temp for this time, and then the extension HTML, and you use double quotes. And when you save it, and then go to the place you have saved it, and now you can observe the file. Double click on the file and it will open up. Right. Now, let me explain again the simple ideas. So the different output commands. So we have to write some JavaScript functions. So remember to use script and slash script. So this will indicate that you are writing some JavaScript command within the HTML. And let me write down the simple one. Alert. Hello. So let me save it. And then let me refresh this. You can observe that when you use alert, you get the alert box and it says hello. Second one, confirm. So similar to the previous one, I will remove this one. I can use confirm, and you can give a message like, let's say, do you want to continue? So let me save it. Let me refresh. So this one similar to the previous one, but you have two buttons. Can you notice that we have OK and then cancel? So if I click OK, it will be true. Otherwise, it will be false. So let me click OK, and you don't get anything here, but we can actually check this, right? So let me do this like this. So let me say let, and I will say choice. So what I'm trying to do here is whatever the outcome, I'm going to save it as a choice, and then I will have an alert box. Right? And then I'm going to display the choice. Right now, let me save this. Let me refresh. Let me click first and observe. As soon as I click OK, you will get another window. And here you will get true because I click OK. Let me rerun. It asks, do you want to continue? Let me click cancel, right? So if I say cancel, then you will see the word, it shows you false. So you are getting two different values. So let me modify this. I'm going to check the value. If the choice is true, then I will say alert. You chose to continue. Else, you stopped the program. Now let me explain what happens here. So alert we have already discussed. Yes. Alert we have already discussed. Let me save this. So what happens if it is true, then it's display you chose to continue. If you say cancel, then you stop the program. So let me run. Let me save this. Let me refresh. So it asks me, okay, do you want to continue? I'm going to click OK. It says you chose to continue. Let me rerun. Do you want to continue? Let me click cancel. Okay, now it shows me you stop the program. So let me show you what will happen in the console log. We have seen that it displayed in the dev tools under the console window. So it will not display anything here, right? If you refresh, you don't see anything here. But if you want to see console, then you go to inspect, right? And you can observe in the console window, you can observe in the console window, the word hello. So this is what we have observed earlier, right? So it will not display it here because we say console log. And if you right click, if you go to inspect, and you will notice the output here. So now we have discussed three outputs: alert, confirm, and console log. So let me share you the code with you. Right. Next one, Right. Right now, the window, we have just one value. So let me use another one, right? In this particular case, right? I'm going to say document.write. And let me say some code here, right? I'm going to use some HTML code. I will say, okay, JavaScript /h. So let me save this. Now let me refresh. What happens? In the original one, we had a JavaScript. Now that is in the text. And then we have added this one. So in that way, what you can notice is we can change what is available in the web page. We can make those changes. We have added the word JavaScript as a level 1 header. Right. So again, let me share you the coding with you. Right. Last one, the prompt. So what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to change this. I will say prompt, right? I'm going to ask, okay, what is your name? So prompts can be used to get the values from the user. And this is very interesting because then depending on the value you are getting, you can make changes, right? So let me save first and let me refresh it for you. So it does your name. Let me type my name. Nothing will happen now, but you can actually use this. For example, let's say I'm going to create a variable name, and then whatever I entered, I saved as a name, right? And then I'm going to combine this with document.write method. Remember, we discussed this, okay? And I will say hello, and I will say name. So what happens here? Now let's see what happens. Let me run this, save. Let me refresh. So it asks my name. Let me say Sampath. And it shows you, okay, hello, Sampath. Okay, of course, maybe we can make it more interesting. Let me make it separate, like what we have done earlier. So let me save. So what I have done is actually I made this part separate and in as a level 1 header. So let me save it, refresh it. Okay, let me take type name Sampath and it says hello Sampath. Maybe I want to put a space. Let me save it, refresh it. Okay, so you observe what happens.